November 15th, 1979. Lincoln Elementary School, Chicago. Muhammad Ali walked into the packed auditorium, expecting the usual cheers from excited children. What he didn't expect was an 8-year-old girl named Emily to stand up in front of 500 people and break his heart with 6 simple words. What happened in the next 10 minutes would change not just Emily's life, but her father's racist views forever. Emily Richardson sat in the 3rd row of Lincoln Elementary's auditorium, her blonde pigtails neatly braided, her small hands folded in her lap. At 8 years old, she carried a heavy burden that no child should have to bear. For weeks, her father had been filling her head with poison. That Muhammad Ali is coming to your school, Frank Richardson had told her over dinner. I want you to know he's not a good man, Emily. He's a troublemaker who hates America. He refused to fight for our country when good men were dying. Frank Richardson was a 42-year-old construction foreman who'd grown up in rural Alabama. His racism was deep, ingrained hatred passed down from generations. To Frank, Muhammad Ali represented everything he despised, a successful black man who'd stood up to authority, who'd chosen principles over what Frank saw as patriotic duty. "Promise me, Emily," Frank had said the night before Ali's visit, gripping his daughter's shoulders. "Promise me, you won't be fooled by his fancy words." Emily had promised, though she didn't understand why. All she knew was that her daddy seemed very upset about this man coming to her school. Muhammad Ali arrived at Lincoln Elementary at 2 p.m. sharp. At 37, he was past his fighting prime but still carried himself with the confidence that had made him the most famous athlete in the world. The auditorium was packed with 500 children, plus teachers, parents, and community members. Ali walked onto the stage to thunderous applause, wearing a simple dark suit, his presence filling the entire room. "Good afternoon, future champions," Ali called out. "Good afternoon, Mr. Ali," the children responded in unison. For 20 minutes, everything went perfectly. Ali told stories about his boxing career, performed magic tricks that delighted the younger children, and shared lessons about believing in yourself and working hard to achieve your dreams. The audience was captivated. "Now," Ali said, "I want to hear from you. Who has a question for Muhammad Ali?" Dozens of hands shot up immediately. Ali pointed to various students, answering questions about boxing, fame, and following your dreams. Then, slowly, a small hand went up in the 3rd row. Emily Richardson stood up, her voice barely audible above the excited murmur of children. "Mr. Ali," Emily said, her voice shaking but clear, "my daddy says you're a bad man and I shouldn't like you. He says you hate America and that you're a coward." The auditorium fell completely silent. You could hear a pin drop. Teachers looked uncomfortable, glancing nervously at each other. Parents shifted in their seats. Children stared at Emily, sensing something significant had happened. But Muhammad Ali's expression didn't change. He didn't look angry or hurt. Instead, he looked at Emily with the same gentle attention he'd shown every other child. "Come here, sweetheart," Ali said softly, gesturing for Emily to come forward. Emily looked terrified, but slowly made her way to the stage. Ali knelt down so he was at eye level with the little girl, the microphone picking up everything he said. "What's your name, honey?" Ali asked. "Emily," she whispered. "Emily. That's a beautiful name. Tell me about your daddy. What does he do?" "He builds houses," Emily said, a little louder now. "That's wonderful," Ali said. "Building houses is important work. People need safe places to live." "Your daddy helps families, doesn't he?" Emily nodded, confused by Ali's gentle tone. This wasn't how her father had said this conversation would go. "Emily, can I tell you something about your daddy?" Ali asked. "Your daddy loves you very much. I can tell because he cares about what you learn and who you meet. That's what good fathers do. They protect their children and try to teach them right from wrong." Emily's eyes were wide, taking in every word. "But Emily," Ali continued, his voice still gentle but somehow reaching every corner of the silent auditorium, Sometimes even people who love us very much can be wrong about other people. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever thought someone was mean but then you got to know them and found out they were actually nice? Yes, Emily said quietly. I thought Mrs. Peterson was mean because she gave us lots of homework, but then I found out she just wanted us to learn. Exactly. Ali smiled. Sometimes we make judgments about people before we really know them. Your daddy has never met me, has he? Emily shook her head. So how can he know if I'm a good man or a bad man? Ali asked. Emily thought about this for a moment. He can't, she said, her voice growing stronger. That's right. And let me tell you something about America, Emily. America is the greatest country in the world, but not because everyone in it thinks exactly the same way. America is great because people can disagree and still be good people. Ali stood up, but kept his attention focused on Emily while addressing the entire auditorium. When I refused to go fight in Vietnam, I wasn't doing it because I hate America. I was doing it because I love America so much that I wanted it to be the best it could be. Sometimes loving something means questioning it, trying to make it better. He knelt back down to Emily's level. Emily, I want you to know something. I don't hate your daddy, even though he doesn't like me. And I hope someday he might change his mind about me. But if he doesn't, that's okay too. What matters is that you get to decide for yourself what kind of person you want to be. Tears were streaming down Emily's face now, but she wasn't scared anymore. Emily, Ali said gently. What do you think about me now? After talking to me, not just hearing about me. Emily was quiet for a long moment. Thinking, the entire auditorium waited. I think you're nice, she said finally. I think my daddy was wrong, and that's okay, Ali said. Being wrong doesn't make your daddy a bad person. It just makes him human. We all make mistakes, Emily. The important thing is learning from them. Ali reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper. He wrote something on it and handed it to Emily. This is my autograph, Emily. But I want you to do something special with it. I want you to take it home and show it to your daddy. And I want you to tell him exactly what you told me, that you think he was wrong about Muhammad Ali. Can you do that? Emily nodded solemnly. The autograph read, To Emily's daddy, your daughter is braver than any fighter I've ever met. She stands up for truth. You should be proud. What happened next was something no one in that auditorium would ever forget. Emily, still holding the autograph, looked up at Muhammad Ali and said in a clear voice that carried throughout the room, Mr. Ali, I'm sorry my daddy said mean things about you without knowing you. That wasn't right. And then this 8-year-old girl did something that broke every adult heart in the room. She reached up and hugged Muhammad Ali. The auditorium erupted. But it wasn't applause. It was the sound of 500 people crying, teachers, parents, children. Everyone was overcome by the simple power of what they'd just witnessed. Ali hugged Emily back, and when he spoke, his own voice was thick with emotion. Thank you, Emily. You just taught everyone in this room something more important than anything I could ever say. Emily rode the school bus home that afternoon clutching the autograph. When Frank Richardson walked through the door at 6:15 p.m., his daughter was sitting at the kitchen table waiting for him. Daddy, Emily said, before he could even take off his work boots. I met Muhammad Ali today. Frank's face hardened. I hope you remembered what I told you about him. I did, Daddy. But I think you were wrong. Frank Richardson stared at his daughter, shocked by her directness. Emily picked up the autograph and read it aloud, word for word. Then she looked at her father with eyes that seemed older than her 8 years. Daddy? He wasn't mean. He was nice to me. He said nice things about you even though you don't like him. He said you must be a good daddy. Because I was brave enough to ask questions. Frank took the autograph with shaking hands. His daughter's words hit him harder than any physical blow ever could. That night, Frank Richardson couldn't sleep. He lay in bed thinking about his daughter's words, about the autograph, about the man he'd taught his child to hate without ever meeting him. Over the next few days, Frank did something he'd never done before. He researched Muhammad Ali's life beyond the Vietnam controversy. He read about Ali's charitable work, his visits to hospitals, his efforts to help people. He learned about the man, not just the headlines. 2 weeks later, Frank Richardson made a decision that shocked everyone who knew him. He drove to the south side of Chicago to Muhammad Ali's training camp. "I'd like to speak to Muhammad Ali," he told the security guard. "My name is Frank Richardson. My daughter Emily met him at her school." When Ali appeared, Frank Richardson did something that would have been unthinkable just weeks earlier. He extended his hand to shake hands with the man he'd taught his daughter to hate. "Mr. Ali," Frank said, his voice barely steady, "I owe you an apology, and I owe my daughter an apology. You were right. She is braver than I am." Ali smiled and shook Frank's hand. "Emily told me you were a good father. Children don't lie about things like that." They talked for nearly an hour. Frank shared his background, his prejudices, his fears. Ali listened without judgment, helping Frank understand how hatred could be unlearned the same way it had been learned. When Frank left that day, he was a changed man. But more importantly, the cycle of hatred that had been passed down through 3 generations of Richardson men was finally broken. Emily Richardson grew up to become a teacher herself, inspired by the lesson she'd learned that day at Lincoln Elementary. She specialized in conflict resolution and diversity education, helping children understand the dangers of prejudice. In 2016, when Muhammad Ali died, Emily was 45 years old with 3 children of her own. She gathered them around the kitchen table, the same table where she'd confronted her father 37 years earlier, and told them the story of the day she met the greatest boxer who ever lived. "What Muhammad Ali taught me," Emily told her children, "is that courage isn't just about fighting in a ring. Sometimes the greatest courage is admitting when you're wrong, or standing up for someone when everyone else is against them." She still had the autograph, now framed and hanging in her classroom, where thousands of students over the years had heard the story of the day an 8-year-old girl's honesty changed 2 men's lives. At Muhammad Ali's funeral in Louisville, Emily Richardson was among the mourners. During the service, she whispered to her oldest daughter, "He saved my family before I even knew we needed saving." Frank Richardson had died in 2010, but in his final years, he'd become an advocate for racial understanding in his community. He'd often tell people about the day his 8-year-old daughter taught him that hatred was a choice, and so was love. The story of Emily Richardson and Muhammad Ali reminds us that sometimes the most powerful moments happen when we least expect them. A child's innocent question in a school auditorium became a catalyst for generational change, proving that truth spoken with pure intent can break down walls that seemed unbreakable. And it shows us that Muhammad Ali's greatest victories weren't won in boxing rings, but in moments like these, when his grace and wisdom helped people find the courage to become better than they'd ever imagined possible. Emily Richardson still teaches today, and every year on November 15th, she tells her students the story of the day Muhammad Ali taught her, and her father, that the greatest championship anyone can win is the fight against their own prejudices.